Hey everyone, it's Jesse Green here. Welcome to the Savvy Dentist podcast. If you're a practice owner, you probably go onto social media and you wonder why some people seem to have it all together. And sometimes if you're anything like me, you might be wondering, look, what is it that they're doing that is allowing them to have that success? How can I decode that and maybe learn a few things from their success? So to unpack some of the success strategies that have seen practices scale, I'm joined today by Doctors Wendy Peng and Gilbert Ko from Dana Street Dental in Ballarat. Thanks team for coming to hang out with us. How's things with you?
Oh, we're doing well. How are you, Jesse?
Really well, thanks. Guys, you've got a wonderful practice in Ballarat, and over the years, it's grown remarkably from a 3-chair practice to a 6-chair practice to an 8-chair practice now. And I'm really curious to understand a little bit about the journey, a little bit about what those steps of growth were, how you managed that, and go from there. So, I guess for the purposes of starting the conversation today and for our listeners, could you perhaps give a little bit of background of the practice when you started it and how it all was in the very beginning?
Well, we both were lucky enough to get a job in Ballarat coming out of university. Initially, the plan was, like most young dentists, do a few years and go back to Melbourne. But the more we stayed, the more we got involved in the community. We had kids, and there's some really good schools in Ballarat as well. And yeah, we thought, great place to live. So when we decided that it was time for us to open a practice, we went looking and not a lot of opportunities in terms of partnerships. So we decided to go all in and just start one from the ground up. And a really nice property on a corner block in a commercial zone was listed. No one wanted it because it was too old and daggy. And it just fell into our lap one winter day.
Fantastic. So, what was that early decision like, that leap of faith? How did you feel when you first went, okay, we can't buy something that we like and there's no partnership opportunities? Were you nervous or were you really confident at work, or had you done some research to know that this should work, or what was that process like?
I think we definitely had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. We've had a couple of friends that started their own practices, and it did look like hard work, didn't look impossible. So we just went in it not knowing. We just had no idea how to run a practice. We thought being good dentists was enough. And we've definitely been taught a lesson here and there over the years. It was tough in the early days, but we were very excited. We were filled by that adrenaline of building something that was your own. So that got us going.
Fantastic. So, how long was it before the two of you had enough patience to sustain yourselves? And what did you do to kind of get the thing off the ground? How did you launch it and get going? Or did you just open the doors and it all just happened?
Well, because Wendy and I had been in the community for a good 6-7 years, we had somewhat of a following. So, yeah, look, when we opened our doors, there was a trickle of the patients that we had been seeing. And I guess that also made us a little bit complacent because we thought that would fuel our busyness. So we probably put our second chair quite soon after opening, the false confidence, and then, yeah, finally realized that it was just a false confidence.
Okay. So, what happened at that point? Was the book a little patchier than you might have expected, or what was happening at that point?
We had our second child at that point. So I was going on maternity leave. And once again, false confidence, we hired our first associate. And that was when it really hit home. We had no patience for him. And as a young dentist, you never want to enter the workforce without full books. So that was when I think we reached out and joined Practice Max community and really realized how poor of a job we were doing running a practice. One of the biggest things we did at the time was thinking, we didn't want to hassle patients. We were not sending out recalls. So we read your book and that's where this journey started.
Oh, well, there we go. Then it's been a good journey to watch you grow and scale. I remember those days, and I remember the young associate. I won't mention him by name, but he's a really nice fella. And I remember in those early days, you actually did a lot of internal marketing to start things off. And how did that work for you? Because I remember, like you said, there was a bit of reluctance to kind of go, am I going to hassle patients? Am I going to annoy them? I don't want to be that person to, harangue people to come through the door. But obviously it's worked out well, obviously, because now you're at 8 chairs. So what was that tipping point for you to fill up the first associate?
So we had to look into our lack of systems and processes and really tidy up the leaks that we weren't aware of at that time. So we reactivated. We had a reactivation program to reactivate patients that have been lost to the system. We followed up incomplete treatment plans, and we really made sure this associate really tried to give a reason for a patient to return. And just those three things, basic things, pretty quickly filled his books. So I think that helped a lot.
We probably had enough patients to be a two-chair practice at that point in time. I think we just didn't know how to utilize the database. I don't think at that point we started external marketing, but just by tweaking some of these recall systems, we started doing postcards and a series of recall processes that really got the patients back through the door again. So I think we've stuck to the way we've done recalls ever since, and it's really worked.
And I think the other thing that really helped was at the start, we were pretty much encouraging every patient who could pay his bill or her bill to come through the door.
Yeah.
But we sat down and we tried to work out who was our ideal patient or patient avatar. And once we worked out this patient avatar, all our marketing, the way we ran the practice, even the look of the practice was targeted towards this ideal patient. And that helped a lot because it made things a little bit more deliberate, more intentional. We weren't just getting any Tom, Dick and Harry through the door. So that was another turning point for us.
Yeah, nice. So obviously you filled up 2 chairs. The third one progressively filled up. And I remember at one point you were bursting at the seams, 3 chairs, kind of, it was almost like the practice was screaming under the load of patients there, which was obviously a bit of a turnaround from the beginning. But I just want to talk about managing that situation where you feel like you're now so busy that it's hard to juggle. Where do I put people? How do I try not to disappoint people that have to wait? Or dare I say, if I'm sick for the day, what do I do when I have to reschedule someone because I'm crook or whatever? How did that process go? And equally, what was the impact on the team at that point?
When we were super busy, we were very lucky. We were an experienced OHT joined our team. She was able to take away all the kits instantly from everybody else's books. At that point, we also started split shifting. So we extended our opening hours to include, I think at the time, 1 or 2 late nights. We were also planning that expansion at the same time. And I think it's just that reluctance of, was it going to disrupt our day-to-day? We were so busy. Did we have time to have not being able to open to see patients? And I think that's why we held off that expansion for so long. But we were so lucky COVID happened. So we were able to carry out the building works without interrupting that patient care. Sometimes things work out for a reason.
Yeah. So you added an extra 3 chairs when you did that expansion. And I'm again curious to ask, obviously we know the end worked out well, but what were the things that were challenging in that period, apart from the build itself?
I think the jump from 3 to 6 chairs, the difficulty was probably not from patient flow, the busyness of the practitioners, but it was the team. And I guess the lack of systems and processes around the team, the lack of training. So we really had to look at this aspect a little bit more because we really struggled. The jump from 3 to 6 was big for us. Yeah, there was many despair moments, but I think it all came down to a deficiency in good team members, well-trained team members, and enough team members.
I think we also struggled with meeting the demand of the increased number of people on our team. I think now looking back, we didn't have enough structure. We didn't have enough of a leadership, like people on the leadership team to be able to meet the requirements of our growing team. So we've definitely struggled. The number of clinicians increased dramatically. I think at times we felt overwhelmed with what they wanted, the number of helps that they needed. So that became a struggle as well. I felt like we were struggling on all fronts, despite it being a busy practice.
Yeah, it's a case of what got you here won't get you there routine. You've basically doubled the practice in one fell swoop, and the complexity increases more than double actually because of the different number of people and interrelationships between them. I'll come to the leadership team in a second because, again, I want to linger on that for a second. But where did you as leaders have to grow most, do you think, in that? Because, again, that would have demanded more of you as leaders because running I suppose, a typical 3-chair practice, you can almost do by corridor conversations and walking up and down the place. But when you get to 6 chairs, it's a different beast. So where did you need to grow?
Well, because my job was, I guess, in the mentoring space, because most of the practitioners were young dentists coming straight from university. So my growth was pretty much looking at the way I was to bring someone onboard them as quickly and as efficiently as possible, and train them to a level that maybe not as good as where I was, but good enough to deliver outstanding dental care to our patients. The other growth was, I guess, learning to let go of some of the patients that I've been seeing for years and trusting the other dentists to be able to deliver the same amount of care.
How was that letting go experience, Gilbert? Just because I remember you've got a very loyal following, your patients love and adore you. How did that conversation go in terms of, hey, I'm going to hand you over to the associate now?
It was tough because most dentists are a certain personality type that likes control.
Yep.
We're all perfectionists by nature. So to give your patient that you've been seeing for 10 years, I've seen their kids, to someone else and hope they deliver the same amount of work, it was really tough, but it was really the only way to create leverage, scale. Otherwise, I could have worked 5.5 days a week, breaking my back, being moody at home. So just needed to happen. And I think that was the growth piece in me.
Yeah, great. And what about you, Wendy?
I think at that point we started split our roles. So Gilbert and I were looking after separate aspects of the business. He took on the dentist and I took on everybody else. And I think it was at that point that I realized that I also needed to do less clinical work. It was just not possible to be seeing patients, going home, planning for cases, and then sometimes you need to find time to meet with the practice manager. You need to sit down, spend time with a DA or a reception team. So I think we significantly reduced the amount of clinical hours we were doing so that I was available to do other aspects of training or supporting the rest of the team.
Again, I think there's a really important lesson here. The ability to work with and through other people is kind of the key to leverage and scale. And you guys have both done that. Gilbert with the mentoring of the young dentists and Wendy taking on the responsibility for the remainder of the team. While we're talking about team, I did say I'd come back to the leadership team. Now, you had a part-time practice manager when you were at 3 chairs, and now you've got a more structured leadership team. And so I'm curious to understand what that leadership team looks like. And I guess equally, how has that structure served you in the sense of allowing you to concentrate on what you do best? How does that leadership team operate on a day-to-day basis?
So right now, our leadership team is made up of our practice coordinator and our front desk coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So, and outside of them too, we also have a head nurse. We've got the front desk coordinator doing all the training for reception team. We've got the head nurse who does the ordering, the training of the team, the DA team as a whole. But we've also got a training DA as well. So for me, I will meet with the management team once a fortnight. We go over the day-to-day runnings of the practice. I support them in the projects that they're doing, as well as tackling any challenges that they've got. We go through the wins, and it's working really well for us. It meant that we don't have to be involved with all the little things that arise on a daily basis. It's really being able to allow me to focus on the things that matter. I'll get involved when that matter is beyond what they could help with.
So you're the person of last resort rather than first resort.
Correct.
Yeah.
Not the frontier of when the problem hits.
I think we've learned when we were growing from 3 to 6 chairs that it's not fun to be in the weeds and to be in the chaos. I think having a layer of a leadership team in front of us to, I guess, shield us away from the things that don't really turn the dial, the runnings and things that break down, and the plumbing doesn't work, coffee machine's not working. I mean, that's not hugely important to us in terms of the big picture. So it's good to have some insular layer there.
Yeah. You've mentioned training a couple of times, and I know one of your superpowers in your practice is training. Gilbert, you mentor the young dentists really well, and they become proficient quickly, productive quickly, and they're set up for their career really nicely because of the mentoring that you provide them. And equally, Wendy, I know you guys also have a superpower around training DAs and having them come in essentially as rookies and becoming really professional and proficient in their role too. And you mentioned for the DAs, you've got like a DA trainer. And so again, it's not you training the DAs, you've got someone in there. So I want to talk a bit about the role of training in your practice and how that might have been a factor or not in the growth of your practice and being able to move from 3 to 6 chairs. And I'll talk about the growth from 6 to 8 in a minute, but how important has training been?
I think the training is really the backbone of any business, right? Your ability to create competent workforce. I think with us being dentists, you can't work without a dental assistant. So we've always made it very clear for our clinician team that you need a good DA to work alongside you. And we've got, I suppose, a well-oiled machine by now in terms of training DAs. And I think what makes the biggest difference is still very much having a patient clinicians who is supportive in those early days and enable them to learn the ropes at a pace that they're comfortable with. And we constantly have somebody on hand able to support them. So a trainee DA will join our team. They'll shadow for about 4 weeks. We have a list of things they need to achieve by the end of the 4 weeks. Then we've got our training DA locating them in the next couple of weeks, trying to teach them the more involved skills, something like a root canal that you may not do on a daily basis. And after that, they're well supported in that every morning we'll go through in our huddle, is there a procedure that you're doing today that you may need additional support? And that's when the scout nurse or senior nurse will go in and help them chairside. So our team is well supported. And I think it's only when you feel supported that you can thrive.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. And Gilbert, what about from the clinical point of view or the clinician point of view, I should say, how has that mentoring unfolded in your practice?
When we had the one dentist, it was corridor mentoring. If they needed help, they'd just pop in and or send me an e-chat. But I've learned as we've got more and more dentists join our team that the mentoring needs to be quite structured and very intentional. So if a young dentist graduate joins us, we ask them to shadow for 4 weeks, essentially follow me around, learn the way I talk to my patients, the handover to the reception desk, how I guess, convey a tricky, complex treatment plan into concise, simple delivery. They also shadow some of the other senior dentists because they have different skill sets. And then once we do that, we catch up every fortnight. It's in their books, it's blocked out. And in that appointment, we go through things like wins, challenges, anything they need help with. And if we have time, something that I can teach them, whether that's a communication piece or a clinical aspect. And I found that's worked. Bite-sized chunks, not too frequent, let them be autonomous. And I feel like their progression and development is quite quick.
And what's their feedback been around the mentoring?
I think it comes down to the recruitment. So we try to look for someone at the recruitment stage with a really good attitude, someone who's really yearning to learn. So I think if you have those attributes, then their development is quite sharp and their attitude is good. Obviously, they're very thankful to be in a big practice, to have all the fancy toys, and to really have, I guess, myself spending the time out of my day and week to really help them, nurture them, and grow them.
Fantastic. So let's talk about the journey from 6 to 8, because there was a time when 2 chairs were kind of a bit busy, not fully busy. Then obviously 3 chairs were jam-packed, and then you've grown to 6 chairs. And I remember thinking the conversation time was like, I think we're done at 6. That's kind of where we'll end up. And then, of course, a renovation mania came across again. And you guys are good at building. I'm going to say you guys, one of your other superpowers is project management and financial restraint and control and running numbers, basically. You're very good at that. You run that as a very tight ship. Tell us a bit about the journey from 6 to 8, because again, you've grown and now it's a different beast again. So what's 8 chairs look like compared to 6, and how's it evolved since then?
I think once we have the organizational structure down pat, growing this time around has become a lot easier. Going from 6 to 7 to 8 feels like a lot less of a jump than going from 3 to 6. It's just more people. The structure's there. And we're trying to create more roles so that more people have career progression within our organization. It actually feels easier now that we're bigger. Things are more in place to support that growth.
Fantastic. So the system scaled up basically. So the systems that you had at 6 work well enough for 8, which is great. Not well enough, they work well for 8. And Gilbert, what about you? What's been that jump like for you?
Compared to 3 to 6, a lot smoother. And as Wendy said, we have a lot more a robust org structure now, organization structure. And we also, within the clinician team, I'm not the only senior dentist now. I guess because of the way we do dentistry and investing in technology and things like that, we have had a few dentists that have stayed, and that really helps, especially in a regional city. So they've really stepped up to become another senior dentist and another voice for the younger dentist to listen to. No, so it's been a pretty good journey, 6 to 8. Yeah.
Good. And is that additional senior dentist, is that role formalized in the practice or is it an informal role?
I would say more informal. Yeah, I think. And also that senior dentist, it's a nice feeling to be, I guess, identified as a great dentist and
Yeah.
sought help. It makes you feel pretty good about yourself as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. How did you introduce that topic to that dentist? Because again, I'm just thinking about someone listening who might go, I want to be able to bring in some support to help me train the young clinicians. And we've got Bob or Mary or whoever over here who's a great dentist. How did that conversation go? Was it pretty low key or was it structured and formal? Or,
Not so much structured. I think we catch up with the dentist every fortnight.
yeah,
And in those meetups, we chat about dentistry itself. And
yeah,
it's obviously apparent at those meetings that there are some skill sets that they have and more than willing to share. So it's quite casual. And I think they like it. They like showing off what they can do.
yeah.
And they're more than, it's a good team environment as well.
Yeah, I love that. So just on that, look, can we talk culture for a second? Because again, I imagine as you went from 3 to 6, there was a bit of a shift in culture, Pirates to Navy transition, that kind of conversation. What happened with culture? And I know you've got a wonderful team culture. Your team absolutely love you and adore you both. How did you manage that cultural shift from 3 to 6? And as you scaled up, how did you keep the good vibes going in the practice?
I think for us, we've always wanted a workplace that had a lovely, warm and fuzzy team culture. And we learned when we went from 3 to 6 that it wasn't something that was just going to go on its own by default, especially in those days where we struggled to hire DAs. There was certain attitude that slipped in that, oh, what are they going to do? They need me. They can't fire me. So I'm sure a lot of practices have gone through this where people calling in sick because they couldn't be bothered coming to work. And that was toxic for our team, especially at the point when we were growing. So whether we liked or not, I think culture has to be created, it has to be nurtured. And we needed to set standard of what we wanted as behaviors that supported our work culture. I think if you weren't adding to it, you were certainly minusing from the team culture. So we have frequent conversations about what we want workplace to feel like, what are behaviors that's celebrated and what's something that really drains from the rest of the team. And we've learned over the years that sometimes if you can't tolerate, it's better to terminate early. And
Yeah.
we've definitely done our fair share of hanging on to people longer than we need. And it's definitely not helpful. So we now really try to stick with huddles in the morning, try to celebrate the wins, being grateful of that's a win this week, that's a win on the day. And we continue that through to our monthly meetings, quarterly meetings, or the yearly training that we do.
Great job. And Gilbert, from the culture point of view, again, typically as people add more people to the mix, culture can fray. What was your design around the clinicians and making sure that that nice feel was maintained in that group of people as well? Was it a similar process?
Yeah, but pretty similar because there's quite a lot of clinicians. The catching up frequently, the fortnightly meetings we have with them, touching base, sometimes patient feedback as well, just gauging from that help. But yeah, as Wendy said, I think what we've learned over the years is culture is something that just can't be set and forget. it's an evolving beast and you do have to nurture it. And the other thing is you get what you tolerate. And I think our personality types are the nice people, I guess. So we've been caught out in the past where we have tolerated, and it's really come back to bite us on the bum. So if it doesn't work out, doesn't feel right, then it's better to just cut the cord.
Yeah, I think that's a really important lesson. For anyone listening, just rewind about 30 seconds to Wendy and Gilbert's comments there around team. I think there's some really valuable pieces there. Let's just talk a little bit about you get what you tolerate, because again, you just spoke about that. I think it's, again, really important, and standards and clarity of expectations and all that sort of stuff. Certainly in my businesses, sometimes I could have been guilty of perhaps being less clear than I might have been. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how you've been able to create that role clarity for your team, particularly as it's grown, and how you've managed the performance of those people as well. Because again, it's just a bigger beast to manage, more people, more everything. So how did you clarify what your expectations were from a job performance point of view? And then how did you check in around how people are going?
As we expanded, we really went back and created a lot of assets around position descriptions, KPIs, and we've got an onboarding document that we issue almost as soon as we are interviewing whichever role that we're advertising, so that we try to get the right person to start with. Then everything is documented, and our practice coordinator catches up with everybody once every 2 months. We go over all of the KPIs, and everything is issued out to everybody on our team so they know what's expected of them, what looks like, what great looks like. So it is something we follow up quite frequently. Our reception team as well as our DA team do get audited every 6 months. So I think we've really learned everybody needs to know what their role is, and everybody needs to know what good looks like, because when they don't, we're back to our prior days.
Yeah.
I think we also do I guess, similar, like a state of company address every quarter. And I guess the purpose of that is, as our team expands and we get new team members, I think it's important to let them know Wendy and I's journey through this and why we set up Dana Street Dental, what we see the community as, what we mean to the community, and what our core values are. And our core values are essentially our personal values as well. So I think having the team understand that makes them, I guess, validate why we do all this rigorous training and rigorous touch points with them. So I think that helps a lot.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm curious to ask, like, we've spoken a lot about the tactics and the things you've done from 1 to 2 to 3 to 6, now to 8. I'm curious to ask what your life looks like now compared to what it looked like in the very beginning. Obviously, the kids are older, and well, we're all a bit older. Yeah, I always think I'm still the same age, and then I realize my kids are older, and I realize, oh, that means I'm older too. But that's a whole conversation outside of here. But I guess the question I'm just trying to ask you is, in those early days, the adrenaline, I think you mentioned, was kind of powering you through. What's a day in the life look like now? What's your lifestyle look like? Where do you find fulfillment and satisfaction these days?
We really, I guess, optimized our practice for our mutual commodity, and that's time. Yeah, it's obviously important to be profitable, but I think for us, time is a bigger commodity. And I feel like life is pretty good at the moment because we're in a position where we have time. So I've got time to be involved with my kids who are 8 and 10. So they're at that stage where they need you. They're part of sporting groups, and that requires the parent to be involved. And you can't do all of that with 100% effort without time. So I think the practice has given us time. Yeah. So I think that's probably our biggest win, I suppose, for this journey. Yeah.
I think we both grew up where our parents were always working. So when we started a family, we always wanted to be there. We wanted to pick up our kids. We wanted to be able to take them to the activities they wanted to pursue. So I think we definitely didn't have that when we started our business, because he was working by day, doing bookwork at night, and then feeling really guilty that we haven't spent any time with our kids. And starting a practice definitely enabled us to have that freedom to spend time with the people that really matter.
Yeah. Well, good on you for making that gear shift as well from that self-employed situation where you are doing clinical work through the day and running the business through the night. It takes a lot of courage to back yourself into that and to invest the capital to expand and to grow and train and manage all the people issues along the way. So I guess I just want to say, firstly, congratulations on a really good job. When we look at practices that are successful, yes, I know you've kind of downplayed the profitability a little bit, but you've done, obviously, like I said before, you manage that side of things very neatly, very well, and you've created time for yourself. So I think that's really wonderful. And I just want to say, firstly, congrats on such a good job. And also thank you for taking time to unpack and share some of those life lessons, those business lessons along the way. It's been really great to talk. So thanks, team.
Oh, thank you, Jesse.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Jesse.
Hey everyone, it's Jesse here. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the podcast. If you're looking for some more tools, some more insights, some more inspiration to help you create a practice that you love, as well as a life that you love, well, head across to savvydentist.com and check out all the goodies that we have there waiting for you right now.